Welcome to the Asian Women of Power podcast, where your host, Kimchi Chow, shares tips, tools, insights, and strategies on how you too can create the life you love with freedom, power, and choice. Kimchi will show you how to break free of your cultural boundaries and boldly live the life of your dreams. If you are ready to transform your life, please go to www.asianwomenofpowerquiz.com and take the quiz. You may qualify for a free discovery session with Kimchi. And now, here's your host, Kimchi Chow.
Welcome to the Asian Women of Power podcast. I'm glad you are joining us. In a moment, you will meet our panel guests for today and get to know them better. I believe you will find their stories fascinating and inspiring. So stay tuned. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to Asian Women of Power podcast and Asian Women of Power YouTube channel. We believe that our messages and stories are worth to share so that you won't feel that you are alone. This is my way to empowering you and the Asian community to speak up, stand up, and show up powerfully and confidently. So let's get started. Vivian, tell us who you are and what led you to do what you do now.
Thank you, Kimchi. So I am a second-generation Chinese American. Growing up, to me, was quite challenging as I was faced with both internal and external dilemmas. To me, I had the double minority, the cultural differences, and the social identities. So basically, ultimately trying to figure out just where I fit in the world. But what I did know was that I wanted to be special. I wanted to rise up and come up on top and prove to people that I just wasn't the girl next door. And I was going to do it all on my own. So every time I saw an opportunity, I jumped at it. My mom offered to invest in a property with me so that I wouldn't be paying expensive rent. And all I could think of was how to find a multiple unit property so that somebody else could cover my mortgage. I wanted to get an advanced degree, so I went and worked for a graduate school, and then ultimately my tuition got covered. So just today, I am the Associate Director of Budget and Operations at Columbia University in New York, and I own multiple rental properties. I also just finished my doctorate degree, and my dissertation manuscript is going through copy editing right now. I haven't really stopped. I think that drive is still with me. It's still continuing. Even though I have my day job to my side and I just finished my doctorate degree, I am working on a startup with a partner. I am the Chief Operating Officer, and I've taken all the experience that I've gained and I'm applying it to the startup now. I've built infrastructures and the business momentum from the ground up. And even with all that's going on, I'm still trying to stay connected with the community. So I'm actually I'm on the board to build a new Asian professional organization chapter in New York. And that's not all. I'm also working on a fiction novel that also addresses the cultural challenges of second-generation female Asians.
Wow. I don't know how you find time to do that. By just hearing it, I'm already exhausted.
Sometimes I'm not entirely sure either.
Wow. We'll learn more about your novel and your degree later on. So Jennifer Chow.
Well, I'm also a second generation Chinese American. My dad is Malaysian Chinese. My mom grew up in Hong Kong, and I'm a novelist. I always knew that I wanted to write. Even as a child, I actually borrowed my dad's typewriter and would type up stories. But I wasn't really encouraged to pursue that field. So I ended up studying, getting my master's and my undergrad in a different area. And it was only when I took maternity leave that I decided to pursue creative outlet again. So I took the time off and started with short stories. And now I write novels with Asian American main characters.
So is your novel focused on like day-to-day family issues or challenges, or is it something else, like love story?
Mm,
Because when I heard of novel, I think of love story.
right. I have different novels out. Some are kind of generational family drama and history, but the current series I'm working on is actually a mystery series. It's kind of a lighthearted, fun mystery series, but the main character is a female Asian American.
Wonderful. Jennifer Tung.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Tung, and 3 for 3. I think I'm also second generation Chinese American. My father was born in China and then moved in 1948 to Taiwan. My mother was born in Hong Kong and immigrated to the US via the UK because the special territory. I currently am the Chief Risk Officer and General Counsel of Plus Products, Inc., which sounds very, very traditional path for an Asian American to be, a lawyer at a company. What's unusual about Plus is that we are a producer of California's top-selling cannabis gummy edibles. It's obviously a very different role, and one that my parents are just like, oh my God, you've become a drug dealer. Thank you for throwing away your education. But I do run all of the legal, compliance, risk, and regulatory functions within Plus. They all sit under me, and I'm the only female and only person of color on the executive suite, which I think, when you're at the level or the point that I am in my career, I think it was still absolutely the right choice. I'm also on the executive committee of the National Cannabis Roundtable. It's a think tank for responsible cannabis policy based out of DC, headed by former Speaker of the House, John Boehner. How I got to where I am doing this is a much more traditional path. My parents didn't go to college, and so it was really important for them that I focus on my education. I was the firstborn and first person in my family to go to college. So, I chose a very, very safe route. I studied at Stanford, finished there in 3 years, and then went to Harvard Law School. When I left law school, I went to a big firm like everybody else goes out of law school, and then took a few risks. I ended up found myself in California, which I never, that wasn't the original plan, but I ended up at Facebook and became lead counsel for payments at Facebook, building the Facebook Payments Inc. subsidiary that handles sort of like online payments for purchases in the Facebook ecosystem. And then later I became a legal director at Uber. I work on payments issues, mostly in the US, but I have also had to handle LATAM, EMEA, and APAC. From there, I think from being into a heavily regulated payments environment to go into the heavily regulated, but also kind of crazy cannabis environment, I think was more of a natural stepping stone than kind of going straight from a firm.
Wow, fascinating. I have later on have some follow up with you in the industry that you are in. Is wow.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah. All right, May.
Hi, good morning. My name is May Huey Bugenhagen. I went to school at UC Santa Barbara, studied sociology, communications, loved it. I've always felt like I wanted to relate to people and to be in the social sciences. And I graduated from UCSB after studying abroad in Hong Kong for a year, which I loved. I loved studying abroad, traveling and all that, meeting new people, different cultures. And one thing I found in common with meeting everybody was I always loved and enjoy being nosy about people's love lives. So that's what led me to my career now, what I'm doing. I did work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for about 11 years. I was a regional manager when I left, and I enjoyed the 75 employees I oversaw and the 15 branches and the managers and all that. But I knew I always wanted to do something different, something that involved people, setting them up, hosting parties and all that stuff. So that's what I end up doing. I end up quitting my great paying job and decided to help people find love. So that's what I like to do now. I am the founder and owner of Two Asian Matchmakers, which is the largest Asian matchmaking company in Los Angeles and United States. I've been involved and lucky to set up many, many people and made a lot of Asian babies and families in the meantime. I love people. I love talking to them. I love chatting with them. I love finding out their hobbies, their interests, what they do. Nothing gets me more excited than meeting new friends, meeting new people. And that's what I've been doing for the past 10 and a half years. And I'm always looking for Asian women to be in my database. So I'm always chatting people up and helping men find their partners, long-term partners, wives, or just long-term relationships. So that's what I do now. I am out of Colorado and my business is in Los Angeles and Colorado. And I'm married. I don't have kids. I have 4 fur children, which I love. And that's what I do. I enjoy just setting people up and being nosy about their love lives.
Being nosy is not our trait. Asian
Yes.
trait.
Very Asian trait.
Very Asian trait. Okay, go back to Vivian. So Vivian, share with us what you studied. You got a PhD degree, and also share with us your book. It's very interesting. What is it about?
Okay, thank you. So my PhD is in business psychology. Very simply put, it is the study of human interactions in the workplace. So I focus on productivity and employee motivation, engagement, and it's a very big field. I think the best way to put this elevator pitch is a strategic HR or a business consultant that's focused on employees. And then for my book, it was an idea I had for a really long time, a number of years. I wanted to kind of speak on the different challenges that I went through growing up, and I almost felt that my life was so dramatic that it deserved to be its own book or movie. And so after a few years of thinking about the idea, I approached it to a high school classmate, a longtime friend. I admired her writing skills. Even though I wrote my own dissertation, I realized that creative writing was not me. I'll do the statistics or research, that type of writing. But in terms of taking the content, the story that I have about growing up with different cultural expectations and trying to just be your own person, be your own individual, that I needed somebody else to help me bring that to life. And so I'm getting very close to the final draft. We just had I'm working with a creative designer who just finished designing the cover this week. I'm really excited. Things are moving along, and so hopefully it'll be launched within the next 1 to 2 years.
Wow, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see that nothing can stop you.
Nope.
That's what
I just charged right through for some reason.
Yeah, that's very good. So Jennifer Chow, she's a novelist. So what's the difference between a novelist and a book writer? You know, do you have to think in advance on the plots of writing the novel?
I think, well, let me answer your first question, which is the difference between book writing and novelist is one, basically that we do fiction. So we write fiction, and I mainly concentrate on novels versus, for example, people who do a lot of short stories or poetry, chapbooks. So that's probably the big difference. in terms of plot, I think it kind of depends. So the first books that I wrote, I sort of thought of the plot by myself, and I wrote the manuscript and then sent them out. But this current series that I'm working on, the publisher approached me, and they had an idea to create a series. It involves a pet grooming salon. So they wanted a pet grooming salon and an Asian American main character. And so they had different elements in place that they wanted me to sort of describe the world of. And then I got into the series because they actually had sort of an outline that they wanted me to do.
Oh, okay. So basically, they have an idea. They have certain characters that they say, "Hey, I want this this owner of a pet shop, and this owner has children or has certain kind of special pets, and there's something going on with his or her life that sometimes affect his or her life, the career, right? And then you just use it, and you just create something out of the blue. You can just make up, you can add a new character into that novel, right, to make it more juicy.
Right. So they gave me just the basic broad strokes, but they said these are only suggestions too, so you can put in a different setting or add different characters, as long as it's Asian American and it has a mystery, in this case, a murder mystery in the middle of it. That's fine.
Wow, that's cool. Congratulations. That's awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to that. So Jennifer Tung, cannabis. Oh my God. California is familiar, kind of familiar with it, but Colorado has, the cannabis has been there for a while, right? So how do you feel when you share that, hey, I'm an attorney, I work for this company, it's a cannabis. How does people look at you differently, especially the Asian community?
I think our communities in general are a little bit less educated with regard to cannabis. And so there's definitely still a stigma of cannabis being a vice. There's sort of a stoner image. And certainly, like, I'm a very type A person. And so it is weird to be in an industry that's sometimes affiliated with this laid back, not very motivated stereotype. I think those things are absolutely untrue. But in many ways, once they hear a little bit more about what it is that I do, they realize it was a very natural progression. So California legalized adult use cannabis after Prop 64 passed in I've messed up all my dates now, 2016. But prior to that, how I actually got into cannabis was because I was a banking lawyer. My friend, Jake, who I knew from Facebook, he and I worked in payments together. He wasn't a lawyer, but he worked in sort of the risk management side. He wanted to originally pursue a cannabis-specific banking compliance company in Colorado, because obviously Colorado, as you mentioned, was the first state to decriminalize back in 2015. I think May would know better the year. But we actually went in 2015 to Denver, spoke with a couple of banks and credit unions about our collective expertise in Bank 60 Act, anti-money laundering, know your customer methodologies that we could apply and hopefully allow those banks to consider banking cannabis clients. I think we had a lot of initial success, but for various reasons, banking in cannabis still remains very, very difficult and a major safety issue and a major widespread problem, I think, for all industry participants.
What do you mean by banking in cannabis?
Well, there are about a dozen states in the US that have decriminalized cannabis for adult use. However, at a federal level, cannabis remains a Schedule I drug, which means that proceeds from cannabis businesses, even if they are legitimate and totally legal and were collected in ordinance in compliance with states' regulations, is subject to federal seizures. And so a lot of banks won't open cannabis accounts because they know that that money could be seized or forfeited at any time. And so there's, for a lot of reasons, there's a lot of risk involved with banking. And as you can imagine, I grew up, my dad worked at the graveyard shift at a carryout my whole childhood, and him being robbed was a huge, huge, huge fear of our family, right? Because, when you're leaving a bad area of town at 3 a.m., whoever is going to hold you up, they're not going for a white guy in a Lexus because that guy's not carrying cash. They're going for people who are in like old Corollas and Hondas, and who are coming from a shift where they're clearly carrying cash. They're shop owners, and that's what cannabis businesses face today. Is a dispensary at any given time will be sitting on millions of dollars in cash, and you can imagine, obviously, the danger to the people who are working there. It's a danger to people who visit. It's just a real public safety issue, I think, that still needs to be addressed, and hopefully will be.
Mm-hmm. I had to admit here, I don't know if it's gonna help me or hurt me later on. I went to one time a few years ago. I visit my sister in Colorado, and I say, "Hey, cannabis! Hey, can you show me what's it look like?" And then she took me to the store, and it's so clean. They basically the store is very secure. They have a security guard outside, and the security guard inside as well, and it's very, very clean. They have class. They have like a counter with classes, and they show a different kind of cannabis or the plant or something like that, and they show some like candies, the product that use cannabis, and it was it was like an eye opening for me. I said, wow, this is so clean. So when you were talking about the cash basis, right? If this is legalized, I think it's, why can't bank do it just like they do for a jewelry store? Because jewelry store, they carry a lot of cash as well, right? So isn't there a possibility, or that could be an opportunity, if people who has money, they can create a bank and they just specialize to support the cannabis businesses?
Well, I think it's very, very tricky, because any proceeds from your cannabis business, even if legal at a state level, again at a federal level, are considered proceeds of crime. And so that's why even people who are interested in investing in this, like it's you have a huge, somewhat unmanageable or unpredictable risk of loss. And I think at a federal level, we've had many different approaches to how to manage the discrepancy between federal and state law. Obviously, in the Obama era, we had the Cole memo, and then we had Jeff Sessions, who basically obliterated the Cole memo and said that we were going to pursue legal cannabis owners just as we would any other criminal entities. And then now we have in front of the Senate the Safe Banking Act, which has already gone through the House. It's before Senator Crapo from Idaho, who is very thoughtful. He's a member of the House Banking Committee, the Senate Banking Committee, and SAFE would allow banks to bank cannabis customers without the fear of seizure or any other repercussions from the federal illegality. Hopefully that will pass, but some form of SAFE has been in front of Congress for years now. And so I'm not particularly optimistic, but it's absolutely critical that it does pass.
Well, keep it on, Jennifer. I know it's a tough road, but I think eventually people will figure that out, because if they approve it, if they already legalize it, I don't see why they can't create the environment so that the owner can bank, can put the money away, as long as legalized. Thank you for sharing. So May, tell us about juice. Oh, Is May still here? Okay. May, tell us about some juicy thing that you are working on. Why why Asian and non-Asian relationship? What does each side what does each side looking for, and how would you know that they are a good match?
Well, it's people are people, but a lot of times I get clients who come to me who are interested in meeting Asian women. So it could be someone who's Caucasian, someone who's Asian, and they just want to meet a nice quality Asian woman. And that's not to say they're looking for someone meek or, submissive or anything like that. They want someone who's kind of like the panel we have here. They want someone strong, someone educated, someone who's family oriented, someone who wants to be successful in life and buy properties, own properties, make a good living, then retire. So all those things are very, very attractive to the people outside looking in. They want to meet women who are of power and who can also be understanding in the home life. Like, I still do my husband's laundry. I still cook for him. I still clean. I still do all those things, which I like to do and want to do and be able to do for him. But at the same time, I'm not the submissive Asian that he thought he was getting when he married me. I'm completely opposite of that. So, which is kind of a dynamic in our house that makes it interesting where, yes, I could be feminine, but yes, I can also be this. So same thing with our clients who come to us. They want to meet nice Asian women. They're attractive, and a lot of Asian women don't age so quickly. Like, I don't know, this panel who's up here now are probably all in their 30s or maybe 40s, but you guys look like you're in your 20s, So it's very interesting that, yes, of course, looks matter because you want to be attracted to the partner that you're with. Second of all is they want the values and traditions that Asian women have. And I think that's great. I'm all for it. I've always been an equal opportunity lover. So I've always been attracted to Caucasian men, Asian men. I've dated both. So it's not like I always wanted to date a certain type of guys. And same thing with my clients. Even if they want Asian women, they're also still open to Caucasian women. So it's not the whole yellow fever stereotype or anything like that. They just want to meet different women and to see who they have a connection with, because ultimately chemistry is what drives people who want to be in a relationship and how they feel about each other when they're around each other. So I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, so that's what I do is if men want to meet quality Asian women, then they come to me and I can help them and interview them and then provide them with some great matches.
So when Asian women apply to your website, do they specify what are they looking for from a man?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes the list is very long, sometimes it's not. But main criteria, if religion's important, height's important, age is important, if they want kids, and some hopefully common hobbies and interests are important. And the rest is really up to chemistry when they meet, because they can look great on paper, but once they meet and they don't have that little spark, then it kind of just fades from there. So yes, women do come with some criteria of what kind of men they want to meet. And it's great that they've thought about it and can tell me about it. And then we talk about it.
So what are the, I think I care more about the values because, the beauty will fade, right? So the character would last longer. I wonder if those women are very clear about the character of a man that she wants to be a future husband. And if they do, what kind of character or trait they are looking for from a man?
They're looking for honesty, patience, sometimes easygoing, family oriented, and personality. All those things are important. Sometimes women come to us and they haven't really thought about who they're looking for. That's why the men they've been dating have not really made the cut for them, because they haven't really sat down and talked to somebody about these things that they want on their list. A lot of times they probably go with what they see on TV or what they read. It's like, oh, I want a guy who's tall, dark, and handsome. But a guy who's tall, dark, and handsome might not be a good father to your children, might not be a good husband. I've never had anyone say, oh my goodness, my husband is amazing. He was so awesome in the delivery room because he's tall. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Like, it doesn't matter if he's tall. It matters if he has good character, if he's caring, if he's kind, considerate, all those things that we kind of take for granted in the nice guys. And we really just have to step back and be like, okay, I'm 33 right now. I really want to have kids. I need to take this seriously. I need to make finding love and finding a man a priority if I really want kids. So that's what I encourage women to do, is open your mind, give the guys at least 3 dates before you write them off, because you don't know if he's going to be a good father or a good husband in 90 minutes on your first date. You don't know that. You might be nervous. He might be nervous. So you really need to just be more open-minded. And these are just dates. They're just 3 dates. They're not arranged marriages. So I encourage women to give the guy a chance. Who cares if he's an inch shorter than what you would like? Who cares if he drives a beat-up car? Maybe he has lots of money in his savings account, saving money to buy that house with his wife. So you just can't prejudge people, but really get to know their character and their integrity and all that stuff.
So do you coach them on what kind of question to ask when they are out on date?
Yes, I try to coach them so they don't have the interview mentality. So it's not like they're going in with 20 questions, but kind of make it in a conversational kind of way where you're meeting a friend or talking to a buddy of yours, and carry the conversation where it's not so bam, 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 here's 10 questions I want to ask you, but rather work it in and weave it into your conversation and be present in the moment of your date.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you for your service. I think a lot of women now, especially professional women, they are focused too much in their career, and they did not have time to find the right guy. So I think, dating, online dating or something like that, or your service would be very beneficial. So now, what were the biggest challenge that you have faced and overcame in your life? Vivian, let's start with you.
For me, it was being my own individual and not conforming. So again, I'm a second generation, which means that I was raised through a very different set of cultural standards from my parents, and they had their own expectations on where I should go to school, what I should be learning in school, even the what kind of job I should get to, after college, just ultimately who I should have become. And I almost had to force and break through that barrier. And for a while it worked, but it worked with a bit of damage to our relationship. So for me, not only did I not receive support from my family, I almost had to prove them wrong. I almost had to show them that we're in a different world now. We're in a different society. There's a lot more options. And since I just kept moving forward, again, every opportunity I saw, I took advantage of. And it took a while. It really took a while. It almost felt, a lot of times it felt like it was me against the world. But I have, after I think multiple achievements with my PhD being the last one, I have now been able to have a stronger voice, and I've become the head of the household and decision maker in my family now.
Thank you. Jennifer Chow?
Yes. I think I faced maybe about 3 challenges. The first, kind of like Vivian, has to do with parents, the parental approval. So my parents also, they immigrated to the United States. Of course, they want their kids to have a better life. And so they wanted me to have security, particularly financial security. And they pushed me in all my academic subjects. They wanted me to do well there, but they weren't very encouraging about anything creative. I think I was probably maybe the only Asian that I know, even to this day, that did not do piano. And I remember getting a phone call from the music teacher who was asking if I wanted to join the band. And then they talked to my parents, and my parents just sort of pushed it aside and said, you should focus, on the academic subjects. So I think that the parental approval was a big challenge for me. And it took me a while before I could challenge that. I think I went through, like I said, I got my undergrad and master's in totally different fields. And so it was only after that that I was able to really think, life is too short, that I should really pursue something that I've dreamt about doing as a kid and just go for it. The second challenge, I would say, is just the actual publishing journey is really hard. It takes a lot of work to get your foot in the door. Usually what happens is that you get a literary agent to represent you based on your manuscript. And that itself is actually really challenging for writers to get. So I did publish through some small presses, and I also self-published actually my first mystery series. And then, like I said, the big publisher came out and read one of my books and reached out to me to start writing for them. And then the third challenge, I would say, it's sort of aside, but it's when my mom got sick. So I started writing mysteries because my mom and I would read Agatha Christie stories together, and she really enjoyed it. So she saw the draft of my first mystery novel, which I ended self-publishing, but she got diagnosed with cancer, and so it was just a very intense but short battle, and so she didn't get to see sort of the finished version of it. But the writing of the mysteries, I think, is something that I do kind of to honor her as well.
Wow, I'm sorry that your mom would not be able to see the fruit of your labor, but I'm happy that you and her share a good memory.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
I definitely concur with Vivian and Jennifer about some of these cultural issues. I think it's really hard to grow up Asian American and female without having incidents of sexism and racism in our social lives and careers. So I think maybe I'll talk about something different. I have suffered from major depressive disorder and ADHD starting from when I was a preteen, very, very early, which is something that is not really talked about openly in the Chinese American community. I'm not sure about other Asian American communities, but for sure in my circles, absolutely not. We're a culture that values self-reliance, and it's just sort of a just take care of it sort of attitude, right? Like I feel like our parents have in many ways overcome so much that to just be like, I have a mood issue, I have a mental imbalance, like that doesn't really resonate in that community. So for me, long time I resisted medication because of that immigrant mentality that you just sort of will yourself out of any hurdles. But I do think it's really, really important to talk about these issues because it's important to reduce the stigma around them. I think that there are quite a few people who have dealt with depression or other mental illness. And I think it's important that people know that there's no shame in that, that you can obviously be a super high functioning person and a good contributor to society, even if you're battling those issues. So, I mean, I kind of like to think of treating mental illness not as fixing something that is broken, but rather just optimizing your potential. Like, we're all built differently. And I think being able to talk about these issues maybe makes it easier for the next kid who may be suicidal or wondering, does it ever get better? It does. It gets better. It gets a lot better. And just encouraging other people who face these issues to talk about it also. And together we can hopefully, maybe in a lifetime, reduce that stigma.
When you look back, do you know what caused it, Jennifer?
I think depression is obviously very, very complicated. I think it's comorbid with some other issues like sleep disorders or delayed circadian rhythm or trauma. I think there's lots going into that. It's a really complex formula. I think for me, I've tried to view it as like, if you had diabetes, would you say, okay, I'm not going to take insulin because I don't want to become dependent on it, or I can beat this without medication? You wouldn't, right? Even if you did, you would be in for a really long road. I think I resisted trying to medicate for a long time. And now I'm still, obviously, I work with a medical professional, and I have cognitive behavioral therapies that I do. And I think hopefully by people who do face these issues talking about it, then the next kid has it easier. They don't have to spend their teens and 20s in a lot of anguish.
Thank you for sharing your perspective, Jennifer Tung. And I think there's a lot of issue regarding suicidal in Asian community, and I'm looking to find an expert to talk about this, because really in our Asian community we don't talk about it, right? We are too ashamed to say if our child are suffering with this, or our child kill him or herself. And I'm not an expert in that, so that's why I want to know, and I want to share this publicly, so to educate the parent, to see if the parent can do something about it to stop from the child killing themselves. So if you know anybody, if you know the expert, let me know. Please introduce to me, and I would be happy to interview that person on the podcast.
I don't know an Asian specialist in particular, although my psychiatrist happens to be Asian. She's Vietnamese American, and I think second generation Vietnamese American. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the nation as a whole is obviously going through a mental health crisis. And of course, we only bring it up when some kid with a gun shoots up a school and it's like, oh, mental health issues. But it's like, why don't we address these things when there's time to do something about it, rather than just cast blame on the mental health crisis? So I think as a nation, we're going through that. I think you mentioned absolutely, like, Asian American parents maybe are just less, a little bit like cannabis. They're less exposed to how one copes with a child who suffers from these issues. And so in many ways, what they think they're doing is helping, and it might be making things worse, right? So Kimchi, I'll definitely keep in touch, and I'll talk with some other social workers and therapists who I know, and see if they would be interested in getting in touch with you. This is absolutely super important, especially as the world gets more and more competitive, right? I think there's lots of kids just really struggling out there, and who have parents who really want to do best for them, but they don't know what's right. They don't know how to help. And just if anybody can, if even one person can be spared that heartache, I think that's really worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's not just in Asian. It's not just in America. It's not within our Asian American community. It is in all Asian countries. So children in Singapore, in other Asian country, they feel a lot of pressure from parents, and they just could not deal with it. So we need to bring more awareness on that subject as well. Thank you. What were your biggest challenge that you have faced and overcame in your life?
As second generation Chinese, kind of like, I feel like my parents think I should be Jennifer Tung. They want me to be a lawyer. They wanted me to go to great schools.
No,
They
I'm a drug dealer. I'm a drug dealer. And then before that, my mom was like, why don't you go back to being a taxi driver? And I was like, that's not what I did at Uber. But, yeah, because you don't want to be a drug dealer.
A second generation Chinese in America, my parents really wanted me to be an attorney. I was actually supposed to go to law school, but as I was studying abroad, I realized, man, I really don't want to go to law school. I can't see myself as an attorney. I want to do something different. So I decided to do something different, and going to UCSB is not like one of the Asian schools like UCLA, USC, Harvard, Stanford, all that stuff. So right away, my parents knew I was going to be different. And then, of course, me saying, I don't want to have kids. I'm 47. There's no way I'm going to have kids now. But telling my parents at, years ago that I didn't want to have kids, sorry, you're not going to have any grandbabies from me, was probably heartbroken for them. But that's not the traditional Chinese route, to not have kids. But I opted to not have kids because I didn't really want kids. If I really wanted kids, I would have had them a long time ago. So that was kind of something I had to let them know, that, hey, it's okay that I don't want kids, but I could still have a very fulfilling life. So I guess those are the two challenges, was what they expected of me, where to go to school, what to be. And then now it's like, oh, another thing, I don't want kids. But at least my brother and my sister, they have kids. So it's like they at least took some of the pressure off me. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So what do you know now that you wish you know 5 or 10 years ago? Vivian?
Oh, I keep doing that. This was actually a hard question, I always had to say. I thought about it, and I don't think there's actually much that I say I would know now that I wish I knew 5 or 10 years ago. And the reason being is that what the important thing is that my drive hasn't changed, and when I look back 5 or 10 years ago, I had just finished my master's, and I was managing one property. Sometimes I would think to myself, if I knew that New York was such a great fit, I would have skipped Los Angeles. I'm sorry, by the way, I actually lived in Los Angeles for about 8 years. So I grew up in Boston, and then I moved to Los Angeles for graduate school. And about 8 years later, I decided I think the East Coast is a better fit for me. And so I packed up and I came back to the East Coast. And sometimes I would sit there and think maybe I could have skipped all that in Los Angeles if I knew that New York was such a great fit. But then at the same time, I'll think, well, then I may not have gotten my doctorate or joined USC. I worked for USC for a little while. I may not be the person that I am today. So I feel like the world and everything just has a way of falling into place by itself. While Los Angeles wasn't a really good fit, learning experience is still very valuable, and it really did help shape me. So if you ask me, I probably would have gone through the same measures all over again.
It's wise. Thank you. Jennifer Chow?
I think for me, I wish I knew a little bit more about sort of the writing as a career. I think it's really important to look at long-term goals when you're doing publishing. It's very easy to get caught up in the overnight successes that happen and the large deals, but usually those are outliers in the field. So I think definitely to have goals that are set for like years away, not very close goals. A lot of authors have multiple stories and novels, manuscripts that they shelve because they couldn't publish those. I also have some as well, and I think it's good to know that. And then I would say the second part is to find some solidarity in community, to have a group of writers that you can also journey alongside with. It's really important to have that sort of tribe that keeps you inspired and encourages you. I mean, I think that's essential in anything, in any field, that we find that community, that we can find the support and motivation to just keep striving for more and to reach our goals.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jennifer Tung?
I think the biggest thing that I wish I knew back then was that everyone is faking it till they make it. I think as women, and particularly as Asian women, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely suffered from imposter syndrome, where you kind of walk around and you're just like, oh my gosh, everyone else is so brilliant and they're going to find out that I actually don't know what I'm talking about. I think that just troubles a lot of people early in their careers or even in their social lives. Like, oh my gosh, like people are going to find out that like my house is a mess. I'm not doing this right or this right. I think what I've sort of seen is that a lot of people who seem very confident and cool on the exterior, it's like that duck phenomenon where there's a duck floating very calmly on the water and then underneath they're paddling furiously. You just don't see it. I think that's exacerbated by the fact that we obviously live in a social media culture where people are showing their highlight reels on Instagram and Facebook, and you're like, God, that person lives like a sweet life. Like, why am I struggling over here? But to know that everyone else has their issues has really sort of changed my view on this like imposter syndrome issue. Like, obviously, being Asian and female, and then having potential, I don't know about the rest of you again, but having parents who were very, let's put it this way, eagle-eyed about everything. Like, oh my gosh, like why does so-and-so make first chair violin and you're sitting in the back? Or, oh my gosh, like so-and-so is so pretty. Like, why are you out in the sun, like getting all dark? And, having a very, very comparative culture makes people more prone to overanalyzing and thinking about their relative net worth to other people. And I think knowing deep down, like, hey, everyone else is just putting on the facade too, has really changed my life. I think it would have made my earlier years like a lot less stressful.
Yep. That's distinction is really, it can change your life, right? We have to learn, right? To say, hey, put up the, do it. Yeah, that's, in the business, we all suffer with the imposter syndrome, right? We have to say, just go for it. We don't have a lot to show, but you just have to go for it. Yeah, thank you. May?
This question I had a tough time with. There's so many things I wish I knew 5 or 10 years ago, but as of today, I just feel like everyone should not take their health for granted. I think as I've gotten older, it's made me realize, you know what, all the money I've been making, all that stuff, it's not as important as your health. And I really took my health for granted. And 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm okay and everything's good. But I think something that I wish I would have not taken for granted is my health. Like, I just really value my health. I value eating properly, taking the, supplements, vitamins, washing my hands all the time, being a germaphobe. All that stuff is all good because I just really, really don't want to be sick. So, but, as far as it pertains to work and life and things like that, what I probably would have wished I invested in property more 5 or 10 years ago, because when I lived in Los Angeles, the real estate there was booming. It still is booming. So I wish I would have taken my parents' advice and bought something else. But all those things are monetary, and nothing beats your value in being healthy. So that's one thing I encourage my husband to do, is eat healthier and be healthier. And I wish he would listen to me, but he doesn't listen to me all the time. But yeah, that's my short answer.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, as we grow older and as we have more challenges with the health, right? When we realize that we don't recover as fast as the young people, we realize that health is the most important thing in life. Without health, we don't have anything else. No relationship, no money. Money doesn't matter if we are unhealthy. It does help a little bit, to seek for treatments and doctors and things like that. But why would you go there if you can take care of your health from the beginning? All right. So, what is your personal motto? And why is it important to you, Vivian?
For me, I would say you want to aim to live larger than yourself and even larger than life. I remember one of my high school teachers encouraging us to go to college out of state. And at the time, I'm here thinking that this is Boston. Most people come here to go to college. But I ultimately took his advice and I studied abroad. I studied abroad in Hong Kong and then in Greece, and then went to graduate school in Los Angeles. And then I realized that with each new place, your horizon really grows with you. And you realize that this world is really, really big. The opportunities out there are endless and literally nothing you can't do. So if the opportunity isn't there, then go look for it. There really shouldn't be a reason not to. So for example, if you want to start a business, go look for a partner, look for the resources, figure out what needs to be done to get it done. You want to travel around the world? Okay, get a job that pays for it. You want to raise at work? Go out and interview and come back with some leverage. Whatever your goal is, just aim higher, because it's very important that you really only get one chance at life. You only get to go to college once. You only get to be 21 once, 30 once, and once that time passes, it's gone.
Wow, it's so inspiring. What about you, Jennifer Chow?
I think for me, I like to weave my identity into my work. So my motto is that our stories have power and that they need to be heard. I remember growing up that there weren't a lot of books I found that reflected my own identity, but I actually didn't question that. I thought that, maybe it was me, maybe I was wrong, different, weird somehow, right? And I think that it's important that we do voice our stories, because it was actually a major turning point for me when I saw Amy Tan's work being published, and just understanding that there could be sort of the powerful and influential Asian American voice out there. And I remember feeling more visible by reading, her books. So I think that our tales have the power to really help people, to inspire others, and to educate them. There's a saying that goes, books can serve as mirrors to reflect us, and also as windows for us to look out into other people's worlds. And I think that's pretty powerful and accurate.
Well, I like that. Books can serve as mirror and windows.
Correct.
Wonderful. I like that phrase. Jennifer Tung?
Mine is actually a much less brave version of Vivian's, which is not live larger than life, but mine's sort of like, do it for the story. My college best friend and I used to remind each other to do that, because I think I'm a risk-averse person by nature. I think a lot of people who go into law tend to be that way in general, right? They do a lot of weighing of cost benefits and just being like, oh, what could go wrong? I'm not going to try to do that. And I think do it for the story, for me, it feels a lot more accessible than like, just do it. Because, like a Nike motto feels very, very reckless to me, as somebody who likes to overthink and weigh out pros and cons before doing anything. I think do it for the story is like reminding you that, hey, even the negative, the downside of doing something where you fail spectacularly is like, you always have like a wild, crazy, awesome story to tell at parties. So the times where things go to plan, I'm like, okay, well, awesome. I got to experience something new and take a risk that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. And then if something, there's been a lot of times when something was like blown up in my face, and I've tried something and then sort of just like hilariously, outlandishly, awfully failed, make it a complete boob of myself. And then, you know what, at the, like, I now think of those stories, those misfires, as like actually hilarious moments in my life. So the picture that I showed was, hey, let's go whitewater rafting on the Zambezi. And you see the picture of the boat, you know, completely flipped and capsized. I flew out of the boat like 25 times over the course of the trip, and then had to like, almost had like a heart attack walking back up the gorge. But you know what? That's a funny story. Or like, let me tell you about the time I was almost arrested. This is because I was da-da-da-da. Or let me tell you about the time I have dysentery because this happened, da-da-da-da-da. And I think that reminder to yourself of like, what's the worst that could happen? Do it for the story is sort of like a midway between sounding very, very negative about like, of course, everything will go wrong, versus like being very, very cautious. I wish I had Vivian's confidence. Like I just naturally don't think that way. I naturally think of loss aversion, right? Like I naturally am like, I don't want to just go for something because what if I, you know, screw it up? And of course I will likely, you know, and what if I screw it up and I lose everything that I have? Like you can get really caught into that mindset. So yeah, I like do it for the story. It's like a safer, milder, just do it.
Now I understand what you mean by do it for story. It's yeah, just do something and then learn from the lessons, right? The story is the lessons learned.
Try everything at least once. I am more of a risk taker, I think. I like to do anything once, try everything. It's not like I can't do it. If you ask me to do something, my answer is usually, okay, when? Okay, what? What are we doing? Instead of, no, I can't afford this. Well, let me find a way to afford it. What can I do to be able to go on this extravagant vacation? Or I can't afford to buy this chair. Well, what can I do to buy the chair? Should I budget something else to get it? Life is short. You only live once. I know all these cheesy cliches are there, but it's there for a reason. It's so true. I like adventures. I love doing anything new. People can convince me to do anything. They can ask me a question. I'll be like, here, take my money. Let's go do it. So I just want to live life to the fullest and have experiences. I'm a huge photo taker, so I like to document everything. So it reminds me of what I've done and because I forget easily. But I love documenting stuff so I can recall it and be like, oh yeah, that was fun. Oh, I forgot that person was there on that trip with us. Oh yeah. So yeah, I just love taking photos of friends and family and scenic and all that landscapes, things like that.
I'm with you too, May. So what is your proudest moment to date?
I would definitely have to say it would be finishing my doctorate degree. I spent about 5 really, really long years, which almost felt like it was endless. But I finally had it completed this past December. It took a lot of self-motivation, determination. There were many times where I questioned the decision, and wondered if it was even worth it. I had to give up a lot of things. I gave up my social life. I didn't even know what was playing on TV anymore because I spent all my time in front of my computer in literature and just trying to, there were times where it just didn't seem like there was a light at the end of this endless long tunnel. But now that it's finally completed, I can say that it was definitely worth it, and it was a good test of my own motivation, my own determination, just blazing through. I can't guarantee that it's going to immediately boost my career, but at a very minimum, to me, it's an intellectual investment that carries with you for the rest of your life.
Jennifer Chow?
I think for me that one of my proudest moments was when I had multiple goals sort of achieved at the same time. So I ended up getting the 3-book contract with Penguin Random House. And then at around the same time, I got a literary agent to represent me for that work and then for future work. And then I got a film agent for potentially getting film options as well. And then I think recently too, it's always nice to have some good reviews from Kirkus, Publishers Weekly. So for my newest book that's coming out in March, it's called Mimi Lee Gets a Clue. So to just have those nice reviews and kind of have that expert opinion kind of affirm my writing.
Again, I think this one will be a little bit weird sounding, but I think my proudest moment to date was when I look back and I think about all the things that I thought I was braver than I believed I could be, was ending my first marriage. I think, and having a professional matchmaker on the panel is obviously kind of is like a nice twist. I actually thought this was my answer even before I knew May would be on the panel, but she's absolutely right. Having the right partner forms so much of the basis for your happiness and your success in life. I think why I'm proud of this is that my first husband is an incredible guy. We're still in touch and on good terms, but we were just young and we had very, very different ideas of what we wanted out of our lives and our careers. And I think having the courage to just say, like, look, we're going to grow up apart and be better off than trying to stick it out and making something work. Obviously, in an Asian community, there is a lot of stigma. Like, we did everything right in terms of, like, we had like the Chinese banquet and the pictures, and we each got up and gave a speech, like me in Chinese and him really referencing Chinese culture, even though he's Caucasian. I felt like that was really good. Like, I didn't have my parents like lose face or anything with the marriage. But then as far as like the leaving of the marriage, I sort of packed up and moved to California. And my parents, again, being the poor communicators that they are, bless them, actually like came out to California and visited me, and they were like, "Hey, so we don't really want to pry, but what's going on with you and your first husband?" And I was like, "Why don't you ever ask Didi this?" Like my little brother. I was like, "How come you never bother him about his life?" And they're like, "You know what? Because he would never be so crazy to pull a stunt like this." And when I look back, I'm like, wow, that was uncharacteristically risk tolerant for me. And I'm proud I had the ability to say, all right, this is a happy relationship, a happy enough relationship, but ultimately it's not where I want to be. 10 years later, I look back on that, and my husband has a career that he loves, or my first husband has a career that he loves, that he would have been able to pursue if we had stayed together. And I'm doing something that I'm really happy with, and I would not be doing what I am had we stayed together. So that's my thing.
May?
My proudest moment, I think, is today. I think kind of what I've been through the past 20-something years and getting to where I am today to be my own boss. I have my own company. I have my own way of making money instead of working for someone else. I have the freedom to do whatever I want, and I am completely happy with my job. I just love it. Like, I'm always working on weekends. And when you said, let's do this podcast on Saturday, I was like, okay. Like, it didn't even cross my mind that I don't work Saturdays or Sundays. Like, I am such a nerd. I work all the time because I love it. And I genuinely thrive with the challenges that I get from my clients and from everything around me. And I just love working. I'm not completely a crazy workaholic. I still do a lot of fun things, but I really have a good balance. And I think I'm finally at the point in my life where I can really just enjoy life and have fun. And I'm only 47, but I think about retiring all the time because there's so many things I want to do. So I have a lot of hobbies I want to get to.
So 3 things that you suggest others to do or to begin if they want to follow your footsteps. Vivian?
For the 3 things I would say are, don't be afraid, go for it, and have faith. Otherwise, that what if scenario is going to haunt you for a long, long time. When I lived in Los Angeles for 8 years, the entire time I knew that I preferred the New York culture more. The busy, bam, bam, bam. That was more me. I'm not just type A. I tell people I'm like type A plus. It's to the next level. But so after 8 years, I had already built up a good career with USC. I had a reputation in the Asian community and a strong social network, but still in the back of my mind there was that little thought, almost like Pandora's box in the corner. It was that string of thought that just kept itching at me. And so one day after 8 years, I took all that I had built and I threw it out the window. I walked up to my supervisor, I gave him my notice. I walked up to my landlord, gave my notice, and I packed everything up and drove across the country. Was it an easy thing to do? I know that Jennifer Tung says that I have a lot of confidence. It sounds that way, but it is that little duck that's fiercely paddling underwater. I was scared out of my wits. I threw it out the window. I had no job waiting for me in New York, but I just knew I had to do it. I knew I had to do it, or else that what if was going to chase after me until the day I steered it on. So I steered it in the head 2 years ago, and I am now at Columbia University, and I'm crossing off all these other milestones on my list. Again, I have a partner that I'm working with on a startup and another one on a fiction novel, and at the time I was really scared. I didn't know what was going to be ahead of me, but it had to be the best decision I've made to date.
Jennifer Chow?
I think the 3 tips for me are regarding writing career is 1, to start small. You don't have to make a full-length book right away. Sometimes it's easier to just start with a short story or flash fiction or even a journal entry to kind of start those creative juices flowing. The second tip I would have is bottom in chair, which means that you put your bottom in the chair and you write. You take a very scheduled time and make sure you block that time out, that it's sacred, and you can devote that to the craft. I think it's very easy to get distracted or to think about all these urgent tasks that need to be done. But if it's important to you, you have to just carve out that time and just use that space to write. And then I think the third thing would be to follow other writers. Nowadays, you do that on social media, but you can also do that, through they have writing craft magazines, so you can follow people through those as well. But just to make sure that you're part of this community, because it helps to be inspired by the other people and to see successes and just to remind yourself that it's a worthwhile pursuit.
Wow, I love that. I love the phrase bottom in chair.
Right.
Bottom in chair. Okay, great. Jennifer Tung?
I think the 3 things that I recommend are, the first is don't keep a bucket list. If you have something that you know that you want to do eventually before you die, then make it happen sooner rather than later. Like, ask yourself, why am I waiting until I'm on my deathbed to do X? Why do I need to have nothing to lose before I do Y? Ask why you're waiting for it, and then do it for the story. Just remind yourself that tomorrow's not guaranteed, so you really don't know. And hey, a lot of bucket lists don't work out because things like, climb Mount Everest, you can't do when you're about to kick the bucket. The other one, the second, is don't be afraid to fail. At Facebook, one of our early mottos was move fast and break things. as somebody who works in legal, who has to deal with broken things, I don't necessarily say you should go out and actively break things. But I think it's really helpful to know that from failure, you can actually learn a ton and make adjustments along the way. And from failure, you not just become a stronger person, but you open yourself to new alternatives that you hadn't thought about before. And then the third one, this will sound like a super, super sellout answer. And especially in light of, my other panelists being women who are brave enough to kind of follow their dreams and do what they wanted to do from the beginning, is the third one is not everybody's like that. And find something that you can tolerate to do as a job. Because I think there's very much a mindset sometimes of people thinking like, oh, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. For me, I just knew myself is that I'm not like that. What's really important to me above everything, it wasn't power at a company or rising to the very top of a company. It wasn't prestige. It was freedom. Like I wanted to be able to have the choices to be able to, for example, work remotely, to be able to travel. Is it kind of a sellout move to become a lawyer? Probably. But if you ask me at the end of the day, do I love the law? The answer is probably not, but I like it. I'm decent at it, and it affords me the thing that's the most important to me, which is to be able to set my lifestyle and set my parameters for how I want to live life. Some people are just passion people, and some people are just like me, like settlers who make the best of what the hand they're given. And then, hey, ultimately at the end of the day, either way works. You just have to know which one of those you are. And either one is fine, but just make sure that you don't try to fight the kind of what like who you are. Don't try to fight that. I think that's a losing battle.
May?
See, 3 things people want to follow my footsteps if they want to be a matchmaker is A, talk to another matchmaker to find out what they do day to day, if that's something that would interest you. Second of all is hire a business coach. I thought hiring a business coach really took my business to a different level and gave me the confidence to excel in what I can do and can't do. And be a hard worker. I think being a hard worker trumps everything. Doesn't matter how smart you are, how brilliant you are, how creative you are. If you are a hard worker, you will get there. It might take you a little bit longer because you don't have all those innate talents and abilities, but if you have the drive to be a hard worker, I feel like anyone can be successful.
Wow. Thank you for your suggestions. I have learned a lot from all 4 of you. So here's the time for you to demonstrate your skills or your talents or your magic. Who want to share some skills today? Vivian?
I thought about it, and I'm trying to think, how do I demonstrate like all these soft skills? I have a lot of soft skills. What kind of hard technical skills do I have? And I think the closest, without demonstrating leadership skills or business mentality, would be showing the other side to me. So I'm second generation, but I've always been. Oh, can you hear me? Fine. Okay. But I've always been an oddball, and I mentioned about cultural identities and even social identities. So being a second generation, I did not fit in. I did not fit in with other second generations. I actually fit in more with the first generations, so I feel that I literally have a foot in each door. So one foot in the American culture and one foot in the Chinese culture. And I've trained myself to be literally bicultural and trilingual. So I think the only thing I can share would be being able to fluently translate and speak in multiple languages. So just as an example, so I guess yesterday was Valentine's Day. So I to wish everybody a happy Valentine's and hope that everybody had a happy Valentine's Day. In Cantonese, that would be 情人節快樂. So 希望大家過情人節過得開開心心. And then switching over in Mandarin, it would be 情人節快樂. 就希望大家過情人節過得開開心心.
Wow, wonderful. Wonderful. I think there's a lot of advantages to be bilingual or trilingual or multiple linguals, right? Because you can be a translator. You can be an actress. You can do a lot of things if you know different languages. And thank you so much for sharing your talent, Vivian.
Thank
All right,
you.
to get to the end, if people who are listening or who are viewing our video here and they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that? What's the best way to reach you, Vivian?
For me, you can reach me directly on LinkedIn. Otherwise, I would ask that you support this fiction novel that I'm trying to create and launch. So there's a Facebook page for that, and I'm generating a crowd fundraiser. I also have a copy of what the cover looks like. I'm so excited. My graphic designer sent it to me yesterday, so I'm just gonna take this quick little scene to show it. So if it's too large for our little, okay, right there. So for our audience that are listening on the podcast, it's really just it's the title of it is called The Asian Duckling, and it's showing a career woman who's just working calmly away while there's this big wave of boba waterfall that's in the back. So just a little thing, just saying that she's regardless of the chaos that's going in her life, she's just calmly working away, taking the challenges that comes along. And the other thing, the other way is I have another startup page for my, I have another Facebook page for my other startup, which is in a nutshell, a one-stop shop enterprise for restaurant management needs. Very simply put, think about it as your Grubhub, your WordPress, your OpenTable, all wrapped up in one enterprise software. And that's called a la carte.
Okay, a la carte. Very unique name. Yes, thank you. Jennifer Chow?
Yes, you can connect with me on my author website. It's www.jenniferjchow.com. I'm on social media too. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Jen J. Chow. And also, since I guess we're doing cover reviews, this is my newest book. It comes out on March 10th. It's called Mimi Lee Gets a Clue. And so you can see this is her shop. It's the pet shop. It's called Holly Woof. It's set in Los Angeles. And this is her pet cat. There's a subtitle called A Sassy Cat Mystery because it's a really sassy talking cat. So Marshmallow.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jennifer Tung?
I think people who have any questions related to career or kind of a more professional setting can get in touch via my LinkedIn. You can also check out Plus Products' website. We're on Instagram as Plus Products THC, and the website is plusproductsthc.com. You'll obviously there's an age gate, so you'll have to confirm that you're over 21, and then you'll be able to learn more about our products and kind of see who our officers are and what it is that we're doing, our mission. And then also, I didn't want to be left out on plugging something, but when I said that I'm somebody who really depends on having hobbies and interests to sort of feel balanced, I wanted to share. Kimchi, can I share screen here on this Zoom? Am I able to do that? Okay, so I wanted to share my screen this is my Instagram account. And I would love, since I'm not very good at Instagram, as you can see by the number of followers I have, I would love if you could follow my side business, which is I run a micro bakery in Austin, Texas. It's called Nelson Bunce. I'm a huge Simpsons fan. And I make cakes for dogs. I know that sounds totally ridiculous. And my immigrant parents are just like, oh my God, people throw birthday parties for their dogs. And the answer is yes, they totally do. I, like May, am also happily childless by choice. And my 2 dogs are like my children. And so there's plenty of dog mamas out there in Austin and other metropolitan areas who really, they come, I have definitely more business than I can handle because I only do this on the side. But I have a very poor number of Instagram followers, and I'm hoping to increase that in 2020. So that's Nelson Bunce, BUNDTZ. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. That's your passion, Jennifer. You say you don't have passion, but that's your passion.
Oh, no. My passions are my hobbies. Like I enjoy horse riding. I enjoy motorcycle riding. I enjoy shooting. I enjoy making cakes. So I think if I had chosen a career that was like my passion as well, I'm not sure I would be able to balance that sort of life. I'm passionate about travel. Like, behind me is a mural of all the places that we've been. I've been to like almost 80 countries. This is a mural. Came to our house and did a wall of all the places that we've been or want to go.
Wow.
If I had a passion job, I'm not that cool. Like I wouldn't be able to just say like, okay, I'm going to walk away and take a sabbatical for a month. So I chose that sellout job and it's made me pretty happy. Like that's just the choice that I made and everybody has to make their own.
You can find me at 2asianmatchmakers.com or my other website, matchmakermay.com, and love to speak to anyone who are looking for a nice man in their life. And my number is 310-867-0851. And I'm all over Los Angeles and Colorado, and I work nationwide. And for any men who want to meet Asian women overseas, I do that as well, and I'm very good at it.
I think you will get at least a few contact after this episode goes live. So that's it for today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please share with your friends and family members, and also on social media. Please use #Asian Women of Power. Until next time, live life loud.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Asian Women of Power podcast. We encourage you to apply what you've learned here today to make your life a little bit better every day. For more tips, tools, practical ideas, and conversations around a business, life, and relationships so that you too can live life loud, we invite you to join the Asian Women of Power Facebook group at www.joinasianwomenofpower.com.